Hey, what's up, guys? This is Terry from True Champion Gaming coming at you with another deck tech from my top 4 list from Florida Regionals from last weekend. The deck that I chose to play was none other than Fire Erupting Merlin. And so I am going to break this down. It's kind of a cool, unique list. I used it to win my store championship a couple weeks back, and then was able to take top 4 here in Florida. So first off, we've got Spirit of Fire, this beautiful altar done by Caben's wife, Quinn. If you're interested, shameless plug. She does a lot of commissions for some awesome altars. Comment below or reach out to us, and we'd love to talk more about it. We go into Rye level 1. Rye level 1 is able to get a lot of cards online quicker. A little bit of chip damage from Creative Shock adds up in this deck because every point of damage matters. I like to joke that this deck is called, I named it Life Control on my deck list because it's just a bunch of math and how we're going to kill our opponent. And that's kind of how this works. Typically with these kind of lists, you know, they're very low to the ground, dump a ton of cards into your graveyard. Maybe you go to level 1. This list has a lot more reach. It does go up to Merlin Kingslayer, kind of like that 9th place deck list from Ascent Houston. Shout out to Main Deck Dan and what he was able to do there. Granted, obviously we don't have Avarice like we did then, where you could just go down to nothing and then work our way up. This list does not utilize Crux. It just utilizes level 3 Merlin to gain more levels and to draw more cards and to eventually potentially kill your opponent with a large fireball. So anyway, here's our champion suite. I'm going to jump right into the material deck. First off, 2 usual suspects in Erupting decks. We've got Crystal of Empowerment. Just gives us a couple extra levels when we need it. A lot of times this will give you the math you need to get the kill. And then Channeling Stone, really, really solid card. It lets us... So 9 is a really, really important combo number in this deck. With 9 cards, we can use an Ember Song and double Erupting, or Erupting double Fireball, or anything to do 2 damage spells and our setup spell. Channeling Stone lets us do that with 7 cards. So it's very, very powerful, and it works out great. Sometimes you need just that little bit of extra push when we don't have all the cards we need in hand. Next, I've got GCR, Jewel of Enlightenment, and Orb of Regret. This is our card draw. Filter here mostly, but Grand Crusader's Ring obviously doesn't need too much of an introduction. We just sack it, we draw a card. In this deck, we need as many cards in our hand as we can. Sometimes we just need to pop and search for those combo pieces. Jewel of Enlightenment, because we play level 1 Rye and we don't have any other use for Enlightenment counters, Jewel of Enlightenment kind of becomes a second GCR. It's a free regalia that we get to bring out, banish, add a Enlightenment counter to our champion, which we already have 2 from going to level 1 Rye, and then use those 3 to draw a card. And lastly, in a combo deck that has a lot of pieces that we have to find, in certain matchups, there's cards that are way better than others. Maybe we need to find our Spurn to Ash of Baroque Acolyte. Maybe we just need to find that final fireball. Orb of Regret lets us look at a lot more cards than we would have ever dreamed of looking at without it. So I would never play a combo deck without Orb of Regret. Lastly, the 3 kind of more flex picks. I played Safeguard Amulet, Viridian Protective Trinket, and Azure Protective Trinket, and these were all in the main. So we've been seeing a lot of fire decks, a huge influx of them lately, and this tournament was actually insanely loaded with fire decks. I think of all the decks, majority of them were in fire, and so playing Azure Protective Trinket in the main, specifically against Erupting Mirrors or against Lorraine Aggro, sometimes getting rid of 3 fire cards in their graveyard is enough to give us the leg up in the race that we need to kill them before they kill us. With all of the influx of water, which I did end up playing against the water deck while I was in Florida, the Viridian Protective Trinket is just an insanely powerful card. If they sit back on 3 cards like they do most turns, sitting on a Counterspell or Song of Frost or, I don't know, anything along those lines to have interaction, we bring this out the turn we want to kill, and now they cannot counter us any longer because they probably were sitting on 3 cards, maybe 4, and unless they had 5, this card just makes it so that they can't cast anything that's water. During your turn, water element cards your opponent activate cost 2 more to activate. So very strong. And then lastly, Safeguard Amulet. You know, I know Fire Merlin is a super popular deck. I know Rye is a super popular deck. And I know a lot of people have been tinkering with Erupting lists. This card was in the main, and even Fire Xander, honestly. Safeguard Amulet is just a card. We can side it out if we're not dealing with any kind of non-attack damage, but this card really does buy us that one turn when we need it. We can bring it out. If we know we're going to go for the kill next turn, we can bring this out against Fire Merlin that's trying to fireball us and kill us, and this can a lot of times get us to that next turn if they do try to go off, and then we can kill them instead. So that's the material deck. And now we're going to go into the main deck, and I'm going to start with the namesake cards, right? We've got Ember Song, and we've got Erupting Rhapsody. This is our combo, and how this works is Ember Song is a Tamer skill melody, costs 2 to play, and it says deal 2 damage to up to 1 target ally. So you don't have to have a target for this, you just cast it. Once you've cast it, we've already done our melody for the turn. So then when we use Erupting Rhapsody, which is banish any amount of fire element cards from your graveyard, your champion gets +1 level until end of turn for each card banished this way. And then Harmonize, if you've activated a melody card this turn, choose any amount of units and deal level damage split among them. So in this deck, we put as many fire cards as we can, as quickly as we can, into our graveyard, and then utilize this combo to get to an extremely high level and just shoot our opponent, clear the board, do whatever it takes with Erupting Rhapsody. Now in this version, we also play another kill spell, and that's Fireball. With all of the Peaceful Reunions running around, with all of the Resolute Stands, there's a lot of defensive cards out there. And a lot of Erupting decks typically go into Lorraine level 1 and utilize cards like Fiery Momentum to really swing for a lot of damage, put a lot of pressure on early, and then erupting your opponent afterwards. I basically said I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want any allies that I don't absolutely need, and I just want to go bigger than them. I want to Fireball them for 1 million, or Erupting Rhapsody them for 1 million and just kill them in 1 turn. So this is really my full kill package. Ember Song, Erupting, Ember Song, Erupting, Fireball, Erupting Rhapsody, Fireball, Fireball. Those are all the ways that we can do a 3-card combo to do massive damage. I had a game where I did, over 40 damage in 1 turn, which is kind of crazy. So the main point of this deck, as I was saying, is draw and filter. Increasing danger. In most decks, this is honestly not great because it does draw your opponent a card into their memory, but it is an actual +1. It's one of the only ones in the game, honestly, which is super exciting. So we pay 2, we draw a card, and then each player puts a card into their memory. We play Creative Shock and Cremation Ritual, kind of the bread and butter of fire decks to really, really dig deep. I will go into the Cremation Ritual targets here in a second, but Creative Shock with Rye online, that little chip damage does add up, and it makes our kill math way, way easier to hit. So Creative Shock doing 2 damage, maybe that is killing something, but most of the time that's going upstairs, just to add that a little bit more damage and dig a little deeper into our deck to help find our combo kills. So we talked about Cremation Ritual, actually. Cremation Ritual partners up by sacrificing a ally to draw 2 cards. So our main 2 that we're looking for every game, if we can find them, are going to be Clumsy Apprentice and Library Witch. Comboed with Cremation Ritual, these cards give us a draw 3. Clumsy, we do take 2 damage when it's on enter, we draw a card, where Library Witch has to die for us to draw a card. So playing the Library Witch, sacking it away with Cremation Ritual, we draw 3. Clumsy, we bring it into play, we take 2 damage, draw a card, and then we Cremation Ritual away to draw 2 more. So these are ways that we can draw 3 cards in 1 turn pretty easily, and it comes up a lot in this deck. Some of our other important dig and filter cards, card draw in this deck, are our filters. We've got Hasty Messenger, and then I play 2 Cemetery Sentry. Cemetery Sentry is one of those cards that I've really trialed it in a lot of different numbers. Sometimes it feels really good, and sometimes it feels absolutely unplayable. So 2 is the number I like. You can definitely try more. You can try cutting it completely, but it is a really strong card on turn 1 or when you need to, get something into your yard potentially. And then Hasty Messenger doesn't really need much of an introduction. It is just an insanely good card that digs, it's cheap, it swings for 1, it gets the job done. In this deck, we actually have a little bit of floating memory. With Creative Shock, we have ways to put it in at fast speed, which is really nice. We have Tempered Steel, which is just a fire floating memory that does not have class bonus. We cannot use its ability, so there is no way for us to use this card other than putting it in our yard some way. Or, utilizing it in memory to level up. Idle Thoughts is a card that I definitely feel, sometimes I'm all about it. Sometimes you guys hear me talk all the time about being able to set the top of your deck. But Idle Thoughts only kind of lets you do that, because if you look at the top 4 cards and all of them are useless, you have to keep all 4 of those on top of your deck. But I guess at least you gave yourself floating memory. We can use our Over Regret to get rid of them, right? So there are ways. It does come in handy. Sometimes it does let you dig for the one card you might need to win the game. So it does have a purpose. And at the very least, it's floating memory for 1. And then lastly, we play 3 Ignite the Souls. Ignite the Soul, just another floating memory with Mage class bonus. It deals 1 damage to target unit. So if somebody tries to do some squirrel shenanigans, we can kill it. If somebody tries to Water Barrier or Spell Shield Arcane, our giant fireball, we can Ignite the Soul and pop their barrier. It does have a lot of flexibility, and at the end of the day, it's a floating memory to help us get into level 3 Merlin when we need to. Next, I have a little bit of Removal Suite and Burn in 3 Sparklights and 4 Focus Flames. So this number, I definitely was thinking back and forth. Maybe I want 4 Sparklights. Maybe I want 4 Focus Flames. But I've been seeing a lot of ally decks out there, and Focus Flames really, really did do work this weekend for me. The coolest thing about this deck is most decks, if I were to play against, let's say, Rye, in my Fire Merlin deck and Focus Flames, I play 4 Incinerary Fractals, and I have all this spot removal, and then, they don't have any allies. I have all these dead cards in hand. Well, in my deck, basically anything that I put on the board, I want to die. I want it to add fire count to my yard. I want it to die to let me draw a card. Focus Flames is a way that I can just pop my own ally, even if I need to, and put it in the yard, and also get this Focus Flames in the yard. And it costs 1 when you're a mage. So as soon as we're Rye level 1, boom, Focus Flame is online. And Sparklight is another kind of like Ignite the Soul, where we can pop some barrier abilities. And this is really cool because they literally can't prevent it. So it makes their prevent ability fizzle. But Sparklight, really good spot removal. It kills Arthurs. It kills all sorts of 2/3s. And then it also can just go 3 up into their face to make our kill math a little easier to obtain. Lastly, in the main deck, and maybe some of the most important cards in the deck, we are a deck that completely uses our graveyard. So Nullifying Lantern is something that is very, very deadly against us. If we can't deal with a Nullifying Lantern, our deck has a much harder time popping off and killing our opponent. So in our main deck, we play 3 Verucan Acolyte, and we play 2 Spurn to Ash. I like playing 5. Sometimes I'm at 3 Spurn, sometimes, and 2 Verucan Acolyte. Sometimes I'm at 4 Verucan Acolyte, 1 Spurn to Ash. It filters, but I really like the number 5 with these. I could see 4 depending on the meta, but having that extra one just it brings our percentage up enough that I'm confident I'm going to find one. So Spurn to Ash has really, really gone up in stock ever since Scepter of Lumina happened. Against blue ally decks, we have a disadvantage because of layering with Nullifying Lantern and Fracturizing. When they Fracturize their Nullifying Lantern, and I'm not going to get into all the specifics of that down. There's a lot of videos out there. Maybe I'll even link one in here or something along those lines. But when they Fracturize their Nullifying Lantern, the Nullifying Lantern effect will stay indefinitely unless you destroy that Fantasia. And we don't have any way to do that. So if they do that, then our graveyard is offline for the rest of the game. But against water, one of the main things that we have trouble with, and one of the main ways they can pressure us enough to kill us, is using Scepter of Lumina. Now, Verucan Acolyte cannot kill Scepter, but Spurn to Ash can. So that's why we have a couple of those in the deck. And honestly, I'm more interested in killing their Scepter of Lumina in that matchup than worrying about a Nullifying Lantern. If they have the Fracturize, they've got it, and we're going to have to play through it. And that's the whole idea with this deck, and being able to go to level 3 Merlin and just fireball our opponent for 1,000,000. So that's the main deck. And before I go to the sideboard, my buddy Isaac's got something to say.
Hey everyone, it's Isaac. And if you want to support us, get merch, or pre-order the next set from GA, then you should check out our website. Over on our website, you'll find stickers, t-shirts, playmats, and material deck sleeves, and the next set of Grand Archive for pre-order. So make sure to check that out. Also, if you like content, then you should check out our Patreon. Over there, we have an exclusive podcast series, extra gameplay videos, and articles written by us to help your competitive gameplay. In any case, if you like what we do here on YouTube, then don't forget to like and subscribe, as it does help us out a lot. Thank you.
Welcome back. So, last, but certainly not least, we have got what I used in my sideboard in Florida. So, this is definitely not set in stone, but I think that it does have a nice spread across the board and gives us a little bit of better matchups across the board when we need it. First, I have Resolute Stands. 2 Resolute Stands against, any really, really aggressive attack damage decks. Fire Lorraine, Wind Allies, which can honestly race us sometimes if it's the Swarm version that we played in Houston. Resolute Stand just lets us stay alive a little bit longer and get to our kill turns. Next, I have 2 Sudden Steal. This card comes in our slower matchups and in matchups where we don't think we will be able to Erupting them, probably. This is really good in the water matchup because we're probably going to level 3 Merlin. We're going to get to level 6. This is basically going to be a free 7 damage burn spell at some point in the game. But the main reason this is in the deck is for the Fire Merlin matchup, because that matchup is going to go long. You have to know that you are most likely, every now and then, and especially in game 1, you can just pop off and kill them on turn 3, turn 4. But once they know what you're doing, they have a lot of cards that they can bring in that make it a little bit harder for us to kill them. You can still just high roll them, but every now and then, it is hard to deal with a Quicksilver Grail with a Nullifying Lantern under it, because we need 2 pop abilities, right? 2 disenchants to kill those. So Sudden Steal is just a big 7 damage spell. 5 damage at worst, but 7 damage on our Merlin triggers, and we don't play any swords in our deck. So this gives us an ability to use Merlin's second half of her ability, which lets her have 2+2 attack when she attacks on even level counter turns. So Sudden Steal definitely came up in my Fire Merlin matchups and was a huge part of winning those. I play 1 more Spurn to Ash in the sideboard for water, and that's what it's here for. When I know I'm going to be playing against Scepter of Lumina, I bring in Spurn to Ash. Also is nice to bring in against decks that you're pretty sure are going to bring in Grail Lantern. A lot of times we have cards that are kind of, maybe we don't really want them in there, but we don't want to destroy our fire count. So it does come in sometimes just for that. And then we have a couple of Regalia cards. I have a Water Resonance Bauble, because my water matchups, I know I'm grinding. I know I'm going to be going to level 3 Merlin. I'm not expecting to be able to Erupting them on turn 3. Again, every now and then that does happen, but most of the time, if they got the Fracturize, they're going to get it off, and you have to kill them another way. So Water Resonance Bauble comes in when I know I'm going to be grinding against water decks. The last 2 I have are Super Flex, and honestly, Nullifying Lantern. It's kind of interesting in this deck, you would think, right? It's not great because it shuts us off. And honestly, I saw a lot of fire in Florida, and I knew that there was going to be a lot of graveyard stuff going on. And my deck can go over the top of Erupting, of standard Erupting. So Nullifying Lantern actually is basically just to buy you a turn against an Erupting deck. And the cool thing with our deck is if we get to a certain point, we can just pop it and kill them ourselves. So Nullifying Lantern is just another way to deal with those fire graveyard decks. And it also does come in because we do have some dead cards against certain Merlin matchups. And so bringing in a Nullifying Lantern, if they are trying to, let's say, chain Majestic Spirits with Crux Sites, Nullifying Lantern's really good there. And it also does not let them do Ascension shenanigans with Prismatic and bounce Prismatic a bunch of times, utilizing Crux Sites to, get rid of all of our cards and banish it. So it does come in, it does have a purpose, and I think that when it's needed, it fills its role well. And then lastly, Tariff Ring, which this card is basically just for Swarm Lorraine. If they are going to go super wide with allies, Tariff Ring gets to come in. And honestly, we do have a couple of very specific cards in our main material deck. So sometimes if we're playing against a color that the The trinkets, the fire trinket or the water trinket, are just dead too. This is a pretty generic card that we can bring in, and it does come up more than you would think against cards even like Majestic Spirits, Ghost of Pendragons, things like that. Terraforming can actually do a lot of work. So super good card. I've been playing it ever since it was released, and I am a huge proponent of Terraforming. So that's it, guys. That is the list that I have been working on and piloting now for a little bit of time, and I've had a lot of success with it. Like I said, I was able to win my store champs as well as top 4 at the Florida Regionals. So sleeve it up, give it a try. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And lastly, don't forget, if you live in the Midwest or maybe you like to travel for tournaments, we have got a regional that True Champion Gaming is putting on ourselves down at Upkeep Games in Ann Arbor, Michigan. The date's December 16th. It's going to be a ton of fun. And then their store championship is actually the next day, the 17th. So it might be worth it to come on up to Michigan, hang out with True Champion Gaming, and play in a couple tournaments. Thank you guys so much for all the support. Seriously, it means more than you'll ever know. And I cannot wait to share more content with you guys soon. Have a great day. Terry out.